Hello, everybody, and welcome to your Thursday night edition to the Scotland Rugby News podcast. I don't think there's much to talk about today, so this one might not last very long. My name is Bruce Aitchison from Happiness is Egg-Shaped, and I'm joined by editor extraordinaire, the one and the only Gavin Harper. Good evening, sir. Been a quiet week for you, I would imagine.
Yeah, feet up all week. Nothing to write about. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm really good. This is getting into silly season for some reason. November's become a bit of a crazy month. But before we get there, a quick word from our sponsor. Scotland Rugby News podcast is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV. Tonight, there are thousands of jobs all across Scotland, and you can find the one for you, S1 Jobs. So go on, start searching. Team news, two headlines. Zander's obviously not made it, which I think most people saw coming. And then the debate that has been raging up and down clubhouses, social media, podcasts, me and you talking, and Duhan doesn't make the 23.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best one to start with. I'm not that surprised. I think it was probably on the cards when he left Kyle Steyn out of the USA game last week. I think, and I suppose we'll touch on this when we talk about that game, I think you can just discount any element of performance or taking anything away from that America game when it comes to the guys that you know are first team regulars, like Duhan, Darcy. So I think this was on the cards. We asked Gregor, I'm not long home actually from that, and he was talking about, there was maybe a decision between whether it was Duhan or Darcy, but actually ultimately it came down to the fact that Kyle Steyn's played more on the left wing, so he's more comfortable in that position. So
You and I had that chat last week, and you said Kyle Steyn's played in the left wing for Glasgow.
Yeah, and I think that's, when you're splitting hairs like that, it shows the difference, the level that maybe that part of the squad is at. Gregor name checked Kyle Rowe, who I think set up 4 tries of about 50 against America. Look, I think it's obvious it feels like a huge call. It feels like a really bold decision from Gregor. I think it's obviously with the aerial game in mind to a degree, but I also think and he said as much, it's because Kyle Steyn's been the form winger of the three of them the first part of the season.
Yeah, it's the Duhan that I know will be taking this pretty hard. It's a tough call, and you're leaving out a British Lion, which is, Scott Robertson, I think, has name checked to you the number of Lions that Scotland have got and how seriously they're taking it. I wonder, people watching, people listening, give us your comments, let us know, keep it polite, please be respectful. Thoughts on the selections, not just Duhan, but your thoughts on the selections. I think, like Duhan's not there, Kyle Steyn's in. It's an opportunity for Darcy and Kyle Steyn to say, we're your test wingers, Gregor. The next 2 games to come, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Argentina, you would imagine Gregor goes what he sees as full blown. Tonga is potentially where people come back in, or people that haven't featured get to play. I'm not sure, because the other selection, discounting last week, Jamie Dobie, Ben White. I think we've all picked Ben White. British Lion starts, but Dobie is at his heels.
Oh, he's right there, and the opposition last week was so limited, but he was very good, Jamie, last week. I think, and I really, really hope this doesn't happen throughout his career, but I think, again, you look at the bench, 6'2", you need a guy who can cover the wing. He becomes that perfect guy for the bench because he can come on at 9, and you know now that he's got the game at 9 to be solid and reliable there. But he can come on in the wing, and he'll do you a job there. And he's a high class operator, Jamie Dobie, and he obviously is pushing Ben. But I think, and Gregor Townsend talked about Ben White's Lions tour, and actually the form leading into the Lions tour when he was probably unlucky not to make the initial squad. So, yeah, look, it was tight. It was probably a tight decision, but I think that combination of Ben White and Finn Russell with Sione staying at 12, which I think is, it would have been really easy to move Stafford or somebody to 13 and put them to 12 and move Sione to 13. But what a difference, to say now we're going to keep our best 12 at 12 and not move all the moving parts.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy Sione's at 12 because I think Rory Hutchison has deserved 13.
Yeah.
And he's coming off the back. Talking of form, Rory Hutchison, is the form 13. There's no point in bumping gums about Hugh Jones being injured because he's injured. So the in-form 13 is Rory Hutchison. So that back line, to me, looks like it's Gregor saying this is my strongest back line available to me. And the two on the bench are probably unlucky in that they're flexible, but that then means they come onto the bench because both of them, Sione potentially jumps to 13 and Tom Jordan starts at 12. There would have been a discussion, but I don't think anybody would have been overly upset if Dobie starts at 9 and Ben White was on the bench. But of the 9 backs selected, Duhan, British Lion, isn't there. But I think it's a bit of a statement from Gregor, and we said that last week. This selection will be really telling for who Gregor sees as his first choice.
Yeah, and I think look at it at all the big games. You think the World Cup's not that far away. Six Nations is just round the corner. Is this now Gregor's team that he thinks is going to beat France and Ireland? Maybe Duhan comes back in for the other games, but I think that's where you do see the development of this Scotland team. Years ago, we would never ever have been able to drop a player who's a joint record try scorer and can do the things that Duhan can do. But that's where that part of the team is, that they're able to say, do you know what? He's not maybe the right guy for this game. Kyle Stein gets a go, and let's see how he goes. But I think we can talk about the wingers and all that. I think the game will be won and lost up front.
That's where I was going next, because when you take out, this is Scottish rugby supporters' worst nightmare that Zander is not available, and he's had a hell of a time with not making the Lions, and he's not played. Darcy Ray is the next cab off the rank and has deserved to be in there and deserves to start at tight head. But Zander, Zander's the man to be wearing number 3, so he's not there. It's an all Edinburgh front row. It's almost an all Edinburgh front 5. There's a lot there. There's a lot on their shoulders to go for this against the All Blacks, because you're right. That back line is really exciting, and the two to come off the bench are still very exciting, but they're going to have to get the ball. And I was having a conversation with somebody earlier. How can Scotland win? Getting Finn Russell the ball, and that's going to be the challenge.
Yeah, so earlier in the week, we were at an All Blacks training session at Merchiston School, and I was chatting to a couple of the journalists who are travelling with the All Blacks, and they said Scotland will be a better team attacking. Scotland will attack, move the ball better than the All Blacks. They've got a more expansive game. The All Blacks want to play like Scotland, but they don't have the tools. Now, when have you ever heard of praise like that? And that's not coming from people in the camp. That's coming from people who are observers and have seen the All Blacks play a lot. But what they then said was they know they can't do that, so New Zealand will try and bully them up front. And, at that point, we'd just spoken to John DL, and you're thinking, it didn't sound that great for Zander. Now we know he's not going to play. You mentioned it there, what a terrible time he's had. Missed the Lions, missed the start of the new season with Glasgow. Now he's missed this. And, there's a piece on the site that kind of explains the ins and outs of it all, but Gregor said that he got pretty close. He trained last week, felt his knee in training, and the medics have made the decision to sort of stand him down. Now he's taken some part in training, but clearly that's been modified and stuff. But there seems to be some hope he might play against Argentina. But like, ask any Scotland fan, this is the one you want him for. Darcy Ray's done a good job for Edinburgh, but he's not a 70-odd capper. He's not a British Lion. But I think having his Edinburgh mates around him will help. And I think that's probably part of that selection. But look, I think probably more than like, can Darcy Ray hold his own in the first 10 minutes? Because he'll do that. I think where I think Scotland will struggle is when the benches come on, and I think New Zealand have probably got a fair bit more up front there. Just a quick comment. Bench looks tasty. Feel for Andy Onyama, Christie and Jamie Ritchie, which I think is fair. Jamie, I'm surprised, not in the 23.
Gregor Brown. I was surprised at that. He was the other omission because Jamie would be desperate for this. He was the captain. Doddy brings the ball, all that stuff. This is a contest that means a lot to Jamie Ritchie, so he'll be hurting with this as well.
Yeah, totally. Like, and that's it. Like, that's another area of the pitch where you think, well, actually, Scotland have got strength and depth there. Jamie and Andy Onyama Christie don't make the 23, and we probably would have been having the same discussion had it been Darge and Bayliss that miss out. I also think the fact that Josh Bayliss is so quick and could do you a job in an emergency on the wing, I think that comes into it.
You love those. You love picking a forward to go at the backs. You've done it so often. You love that.
With that 6-2 bench, somebody has to be able to do it. Because if you get look at Ireland,
I'd be sticking Matt Fagerson at 12.
Yeah, Gregor will be sticking Josh Bayliss on the blindside wing. Yeah. Josh continues here. Monster back row, which I think is fair.
Josh, didn't you worry about being late, Josh? You're getting in there. You've absolutely nailed it because that back row has been chosen with, physicality, size. I don't know pound for pound the pack weights, but Gregor Brown, Matt Fagerson, Matt Fagerson doesn't often pack down at number 7.
No, but he did for Glasgow against the Bulls a couple of weeks ago. And at the time, and I'm not sure if I said it on here or I said it elsewhere, but at the time I said that feels like a Gregor selection. Gregor Brown.
You're telling me that Franco's making selections based on Gregor?
Not at all. But what I am saying is it felt like something that Gregor would do. And the team that night was Gregor Brown at 6, Matt Fagerson at 7, and Dempsey on his first game back played at number 8. And apparently we're led to believe that it impressed so much that they've all been parachuted in. And look, I think for Gregor Brown, I think this is his first real. He played a couple of games last year's summer tour in the back row. This is his first real go in the back row, and having his Glasgow mates beside him will also help. But look, there might be a chance he's going to have to play 60 minutes in the back row and then jump into the second row. So, it's a fair old shift for him. Just to quickly circle back to this.
Henry. Well, Henry, what do you think? Why do you think Duhan's been dropped?
Yeah,
I'd love to know. I mean, it didn't take long when Scotland posted, and then Scotland Rugby News posted, and the team sheets start coming up on all the different social media pages, and then you read the comments, and it literally divides the nation. There are those saying, "What are you up to? This is what Duhan gives," and then somebody responds with, "Oh, but here's what he doesn't give," and it gets into some people can't have a debate without getting personal or get a bit shirty, but Duhan van der Merwe has been called world class by a huge number of people far greater than me and with knowledge and experience than me. But Kyle Steyn and Darcy Graham are also outstanding wingers.
Do you know what I think I'm really interested in? I think for so long we've talked about, right, this is what you get from Duhan, and you know, he admitted himself last week when we spoke to him before his 50th, I'm not the full package. I think that was the exact words he used. So fine, but we've tried to negate that and say, okay, well, you know, he maybe isn't as good in the air, or he isn't as good defensively as a Kyle Steyn, but look at what he does. You know, he creates these magic X Factor moments, and we would never have had some of the tries. But I feel like now we've seen we've given it a go. We've never really cracked it against the top two teams who essentially kick us into submission. I think this is worth a crack.
Who's your top two teams?
Probably South Africa and Ireland and France, top three teams.
And New Zealand.
And New Zealand, we've lost games in different ways. I think New Zealand, the bench 3 years ago, like, no question in my mind, Scotland should have beat New Zealand in 2022. We probably should have won the game in 2017. But their bench and that ability to, like,
the depth is insane.
It's outrageous. Like, no, like, I looked at that team this morning when the All Blacks team came out. No Jordy Barrett, no
Scott Barrett,
no Scott Barrett, Anton Leonard-Brown, folk like that. Not even Sevu Reece has been sent to London to play for the All Black 15. Like, and you still look at it and think, okay, Fabian Holland, and you know, there's guys there who maybe not. Cam Roygaard, I know he scored a great try at the weekend, but
he's the future.
Yeah, he is, but that's exactly it. They're the future. Like,
he's the now. We're going to learn about that regional bias. We're going to learn. Cam Roygaard is tearing up trees. This is him announcing himself to the Northern Hemisphere on this tour.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think when you look at the Caps and that like aura of the All Blacks, this team, probably apart from Ardy, doesn't have that to the same extent that other teams have.
I think I don't disagree with you across the board, but there are players in there. Caleb Clark,
yeah,
ridiculous. Will Jordan, ridiculous. You're bringing Damien McKenzie off the bench.
Yes,
like people could get excited and say he's the best attacking player on the planet. He is unbelievable. To bring him on is insane.
But they would be wrong, because the best attacking player on the planet is Finn Russell. So
that's the arguable. That's the bit. Didn't he start this? Didn't he start this? But so New Zealand will try and stop Finn Russell playing. Ardy Savia, like, the turnovers are. That's one of the stats I'm going to look for, and I'm not a stat kind of guy, but I'm really interested to see turnovers and penalties won, because you're bringing Darge on. That back row that we've got is not potentially a get to the breakdown first kind of back row. Ardy Savia, some of the turnovers that guy has got make him not of this world, because
they're
it's
outrageous.
Ridiculous, and it's like scoring a try, and he will put in an enormous shift, and he's like a magnet. The ball appear, but it's because he's so good. His game sense is completely off the chart, and he makes very few mistakes. So I'm really keen to see how Scotland eat him up or deal with him.
I tell you what,
take away that strength.
100% agree. But talking about local bias, and like, if you look at that, the battle of the break, like Cody Taylor at the breakdown is a total menace.
Yeah,
but coming off the bench, Duplessis Carifi is like Scotland might need dynamite to move him off some of these breakdowns. He reminds me of like a Sam Warburton or like a George Smith, the ex-Australia. like he's so low to the ground that as soon as he gets kind of locked on the ball, you're finished, you've had it, So I think the battle between him and maybe Darge towards the end of the game, and that probably means Ardi Sevilla moving to probably number 8, and then like Gregor has just been chatting about Wallace Satiti, and he was World Rugby Breakthrough Player of the Year last year. So like yeah, the All Blacks might not have that aura about them because these guys haven't won World Cups and stuff yet. But like, let's make no mistake, they're a serious team.
My mate that works for the All Blacks, and I picked him up on Monday night. We went for food, and then I was dropping him back at the hotel in the Royal Mile, and I didn't realise you couldn't turn right off the bridges on the Royal Mile. So I said, do you just want to jump out here? And walking along the street were 3 All Blacks with these 3 wee Rajis walking along, chatting to them, and it was just beautiful. It was just such a cool thing that they were just out for an evening wander, and these 3 wee gadgies for Edinburgh had locked on to these 3 absolute giants, and like Caleb Clark was one of them, and he looked small.
Yeah,
and it was just one of those brilliant little rugby moments of how they can leave the hotel and not be swamped and paparazzied and just be cruising along in Edinburgh or of a Monday night, but still attract interesting characters.
However, Scott Robertson, when we spoke to him this morning, did say, and I'm not sure I hope this wasn't him getting his excuses in early, but he did say there's been a piper on the corner of the hotel for the last 3 nights playing the same tune.
Oh, my mate's room looks straight onto Whistle Binkies, and he said it's an absolute nightmare. He said it's so loud.
Well, if anybody at Whistle Binkies is listening, turn the music up for Friday
night. Exactly, go for it. Listen, I find it fascinating because I get at the start of the week, I was very much, I don't think we can win, and then I start to get closer and closer, and you're like, come on. James Aitken, great to hear from you, and I love your Westy profile pic. Good on you. How lucky we are to have so many quality players to choose from. And James, do you know, I totally agree, but it frustrates the hell out of me because I feel like we've had days or years where we didn't, and it now that this weird Scottish thing of almost feels spoiled. Like, how can we be leaving Duhan van der Merwe and Jamie Ritchie out of this squad?
Yeah, it's and like that's what I mean about. I said it earlier. In years gone by, there was no way a guy like Duhan, for all his flaws and all the things that we maybe think he should be better at, like there's no way he would be left out of the team. Never mind the idea of this feels like Gregor's Gatland when he dropped O'Driscoll in 2013. Like it's not that, and it shouldn't be, but it feels like it because he's such. When Duhan's fit, he plays.
Well, and a lot of people, if you asked them to name a Scotland rugby player, they would, Duhan's one of the first one that comes into your head. Do you know who we've not mentioned? And I'm not gonna move on until we do. And I said Damien McKenzie, arguably best attacking player. Finn Russell, we all claim is. Do you know who I'm really excited to see back at Murrayfield is Blair Kinghorn?
100%.
I hope. Like, I don't know what the New Zealand tactic is going to be. The first 10-15 minutes is going to be so interesting from both teams because you cannot kit for whatever we say about up front. If New Zealand have one poor kick to Darcy Graham, Kyle Steyn, or Blair Kinghorn, like we're at the races. That's exciting. When you see Blair Kinghorn fielding a kick and he's got Darcy coming to find him, or Kyle Steyn, I just think that is. To have a back three like that, it's missing Duhan van der Merwe. But Blair Kinghorn is so important to us.
Oh, so important. Like, we're now, I think I said this last week, we're now at the stage where you almost feel like that team kind of picks itself apart from, maybe our horses for courses, Duhan for Kyle, Kyle for Duhan. Maybe the 9 changes, there was maybe a discussion at 13, but when they're fit, Blair Kinghorn plays, Sione plays, Finn plays, and like those guys are so important to the way Scotland will try and beat this All Blacks team. Like, we're chatting to Gregor about Blair, and he was saying that I think he had found it quite tough initially coming back from the Lions because basically he was straight on. He had a couple of weeks off. I think he got married, and
he had Magnus Bradbury's wedding that he was best man at.
Yes, and then straight back into it with Toulouse. So I think he was a bit like, hang on a minute, I'm don't really feel like I've had a break, but he seems to have sort of hit the ground running the last few weeks with Toulouse. He's been playing a bit at 10 again, which from a Scottish point of view is not, I think, where we want to see him, but it means he's involved. It means he's getting the ball. And
you say that, but there's bits of that I really like because in France, historically, when growing up, the 9 played 10 and the 10 played 9 sometimes, and 50, and the winger would play at fullback, and I like that, and I like that kind of multi-purpose in that environment. I like it. I always find it strange, and we spoke about this when that's not the position you play for your club, but you get picked for your country. That one I'm not quite sure of, but for Toulouse to go, do you know what? You've got the skill to play 10. I think that's unreal because talking of depth, I doubt they need to play Blair Kinghorn at 10, but they do because he's got the ability, and in that team, that must be quite a nice thing to have a go at 10 and appreciate what it is at 15. And then you bring out the halftime show as Antoine Dupont signing his new contract, which also made me giggle this week.
By the way, when are you getting to do the contract signings at the Hive?
Yeah. And today, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome onto the pitch, Freddie Douglas.
Yeah. But it was like, yeah.
I'm excited to see Blair. I'm excited to see Blair. There's a lot there, and Gilco gets a hard time, and I love him a bit. So I've known him since he was a kid. I'm so proud of that big lad, and he's vice captain, and he'll be at every breakdown, or not every breakdown, but he'll be clear and breakdown. He's not going to do it flashy. He's the line-out caller. He's the man to take charge and give that experience, and I hope it goes well for the big man because there's a lot of folk out to get him.
Do you know last week I think we talked about Stafford, and I said Gregor had described him as a glue player. I think that's now what Gilco is for this squad, and I think, and he has had a bit of a tough time on socials. I posted a team that I had sort of predicted, and folk are saying, "Oh, why Gilco?" Like, I think it's worth addressing because he's obviously in the actual team. Like, I don't think now, yes, Gilco's 35, but I think we're hung up on this thing that rugby players play till they're 35, and then that's it. They've somehow expired. You look at like an Alan Wynne-Jones who played till he was 37, 38. Johnny Sexton did the same. Gilco missed a lot of rugby the earlier parts of his career with injuries. You think he was named Scotland captain by Verne, then never got to do it because he was injured.
His wrist or something, wasn't it? He got injured. Yeah. But he's talking of glue. The stuff that we don't see in the hotel at training, and Gilco's going to become a coach because he's a line-out nerd, and Gilco's going to take that on, but what he brings is much more than what he does with the ball in his hands or the tackles that he makes.
Yeah, 100% that. And it was telling that after one of the games, Samoa, I think, in the summer, the last game on tour, Gregor actually said, before I talk about all these young guys and people potentially going off for the Lions, I want to talk about Gilco because John Dalziel was away, they had Fergus Pringle in looking at the forwards. He said, but basically, Gilco's been helping in that department. Gilco's essentially been almost a player coach on the tour. So that to me shows the level of respect and the esteem that he's held within the Scotland squad. Yes, we can get hung up on the fact he's 35. Yes, I don't think Gilco should play every game now. But we should be past the point of saying, get him out, like he's a guy that's been Gregor's go-to man for years and years and years for all these big games. I don't think at this stage, like his performances haven't dipped massively. We just now have huge competition in that.
Yeah, agree.
Second row. I think he's not now going to be a guy who's discarded and just forgotten about before the World Cup, because you then lose nearly 80 caps of experience, but you lose all that stuff that you're talking about in the hotel, in the meetings, running the line out, all that stuff. So I think whether folk like it or not, I think until the World Cup, it'll be Cummings and Gilchrist for the big games, and we might get a Gregor Brown or a Max Williamson for some of the other games. Alex Samuel, yeah.
And that's us back to there's depth, but and while we do have, I'm always loath to talk about world class, but we've got some tall poppies in our squad that other countries would quite like to have, but there is then that group below. But you wonder how do they show themselves to have potential to be? I don't know what I'm trying to get at here, but you've got there's nobody that we're pointing at going, they must be in front of Grant Gilchrist because their performances merit it, or they're, whereas it would take something special for us to say it's time for Finn Russell to be dropped, or it's time for Blair Kinghorn to be dropped. And they're the tall poppies that it's going to be very difficult to cut down. But even in the back row, we're talking about the bench, and then Jamie Ritchie's not in, but no one's necessarily head and shoulders way above everybody. We could have picked a back row, Darge, Jamie Ritchie, and Fagerson or Dempsey and probably wouldn't have got too upset about it.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's my point, is that there's competition, and some of the guys that we've mentioned, Gregor Brown, Alex Samuel, Max Williamson, Ewan Johnson, Cam Henderson, Marshall Sykes, all these guys have shown promise and bits of good form, but then so's Gilco. And when Edinburgh win big games, he's inevitably involved. He's played in a lot of big games and been involved in a lot of big wins for Scotland. You look at the survivors from the wins in Twickenham and Paris and Cardiff, and Gilco's the sort of common denominator for a lot of them in that forward pack. Bless you.
Thank you. And just sorry, carry on.
Sorry, I think it's worth saying, I think he's a guy who'll be around, and whether or not folk like or dislike, we maybe, it's like the Johnny Matthews thing. We maybe just need to move on now, But yeah.
Dig at me.
No, it was a dig at it was probably a comment towards the people who every time there's a Scotland squad, folks say, "Where's Johnny Matthews?" Well, he wasn't in the training squad 2 weeks ago, so I'm not sure how to explain it. But anyway,
okay. Bench. Oh, go for it. Yeah, Craig, totally.
100% agree.
Couldn't be more gutted for him, Craig.
Yeah, and I think it is I think he'll be absolutely gutted, and I'm not sure if somebody has to sort of give it, if his brother or somebody has to try and pick him up a bit, because his
wife and kids they're doing a great job of picking him up.
But do you know what I mean? They're the example then. Because he missed the Lions, now he's missed this. You think the guy can't catch a break.
He's philosophical though. Those things, the silver lining was he got to have a family holiday and he got to spend time with people that he loved. So he's Zander's pretty switched on. He'll be okay. But you're absolutely right. It is tough, and you do still need the people around you, no matter if you're a test tight head or not.
I think this one, just to touch on. So the message we got.
Lap man.
That's an incredible YouTube name.
I'm waiting for that movie to come out. The Lap Man.
The Lap Man. So last week the message was Rory Darge was sort of seemed to be further behind. Zander trained fully. Then Zander, I think I said this earlier, but Zander felt his knee in a training session so was kind of scaled back. Seemed to still have some pain in his knee, so I think the decision was pretty clear cut that Luke Zander's been out for a lot longer than Darge, and the reality is it was going to be tough for him to come back after 7 months of no rugby and walk straight into playing the All Blacks. So
there has to be a bit of looking into the future as well, though. There's no point in Zander playing at 80% or playing, because you don't know he's 80% until you test him at 100%, if you see what I mean. So you can knock his panning and training and it seems good, but you're going up against the All Blacks at Murrayfield. Like, that's you can't test for that. So if in training Zander's saying I feel it, then bang, you got to pull him, because the last thing you want is to rush him and he's out for even longer. So I'm hoping they're erring on the side of caution, and we do see him at some point. I wouldn't be that upset if we didn't see him for Scotland and he's back for Glasgow and we get him for the Six Nations and hopefully everything's okay.
The other part of that, and you've just talked about silver linings and family holidays and stuff, but like, what a guy to bring back with all that enthusiasm and all that for either Argentina when you know you're going to be tested up front, or you might find the silver lining is like Zander Fagerson, Scotland captain against Tonga, and he gets 40 minutes, probably goes okay. It's an easier sort of path back in.
I think the ship sailed. If he doesn't make Argentina, I don't think he plays Tonga. I think they send him back to Glasgow and say, you get ready for that.
I agree. I think that would be the sensible thing. Glasgow have got some huge European games, and I think it would be better for him to be available for them rather than playing essentially a nothing friendly against Tonga.
You mentioned Gilco missing rugby. In some, and there's Scott Barrett taking a non-rugby playing sabbatical, and we're not here to discuss that just now, but I would take my hat off to him and think that's pretty impressive and fair play to New Zealand rugby. But hopefully it's a good thing for Zander, right? Okay, that, for 6 months, 8 months, whatever it turns into, maybe I'm prolonging it. Zander having less in his legs come Six Nations and business end of the season for Glasgow, silver linings, we're never going to know. In hindsight is the greatest gift, but it'd be great to see him. Looking at the bench just very quickly, it's good to see George Turner back. I hope he goes well. Suz, love it. Elliot Miller-Mills, fair play to him. He's playing at Northampton and he gets himself in. Sykesy we've mentioned, Darja mentioned, but your favourite Josh Bayliss is on the bench and he's going to come on, and that might be the guy to come on. And if him and Darge come on, all of a sudden game's a bit more loose, breakdown, opportunities to turn over, playing those wider channels. That's maybe where the bench is different.
Yeah,
because that would signal likely a change, because you're taking off big for not for small, but you get what I mean. You're replacing Brown, Fagerson maybe, or Gilco, Cummings, Brown moves up, and it gets a bit faster and looser.
Yeah, well, look, I've just spent the last 5 minutes defending Gilco, but if with 20 minutes to go, 15 minutes to go, he's absolutely out on his feet, you take him off, you've maybe already used Marshall, but if you've not, there's an option to put Marshall on for his size, or you can change the game a bit and say, do you know what? We've got a guy on the bench here who, remember the try he scored against Australia last year? Like Josh Bayliss off the bench is a pretty dangerous prospect. I think where he maybe lacks is in that size and the sort of direct physicality. I would be surprised to see him coming on for somebody like Dempsey, but I think he can cause bother. And I think the other thing, like Elliot Miller-Mills hasn't played for a few weeks, but if you're sending a replacement tight head, and to Blair's point, both New Zealand front rows will be a serious challenge for Scotland.
It's pretty sore, Blair. I totally agree with that. That's
like their bench their front row off the bench, Takiaho and Tamati Williams particularly. Like,
well, Williams was one of the boys that was walking along the street on Monday night, and you're like what do you? Where were those humans 20 years ago? Firstly, and I had that chat with my mate that works for the All Black. Like, where were all these absolute giants 20 years ago? But he's enormous.
yeah, tell you something. We were speaking to Jason Holland, the All Blacks assistant coach,
Yeah,
at Merkiston on Tuesday, and just over his shoulder there was a scrummaging session, and it was the replacement front row, Tukiaho, Tosi, and Tamati Williams. And I've seen Springbok front rows, and they're enormous, and like Pierre Schumann's a giant. But these guys were like,
they're tall as well, though. That's it. They're not just massive, but they're tall.
But they're like, it's hard to describe. It's not just that they've been in the gym. It's clearly the genetics of where they're from and all the rest of it. But they just looked totally immovable. And I thought, well, good luck. Any scrum that pushes the three of them back, crack on, lads.
Tamati Williams' mother's Scottish. He qualifies for Scotland. She named him after her favourite salad vegetable.
Yeah. Listen, if only that was true.
Every time I hear Tamati, it makes me like, huh? What?
Yeah.
That. Anyway, that's probably.
Should we talk about Wallace Satiti and his dad?
Yeah, he Gala boy.
Like, how good is that?
Gala boy.
I've just published something a couple hours ago about look, you've won a prize. Tamati has won a prize.
Umzi, thank you. I mean, you gotta love that. You just gold. Do you know when Simo Satiti and Tanner Villi were playing at the Borders?
Yeah.
When they were playing at the Borders, my wife's uncle started chatting to this guy over the fence. His new neighbour started chatting to him, and he was like, "Oh, how's it going? Yeah, not bad. I play rugby. All right, for the Borders. All right. But have you played much rugby before?" And he was like, "I've got 20 caps for Samoa." And Moop was like, "All right, he's a bit of a player." Yeah, we should have got our claws into him.
Yeah, I think it's speaking to Gregor earlier. He was telling a story about taking Semo. I think Gregor's kids must be about the same age as Wallace.
Yeah, they will be.
And he said they went sledging one winter's day, and to be fair to Gregor, you know, he's two days out from playing the All Blacks, and he's recounted this story of 20 odd years ago taking the Satiti family sledging in St Boswell's, which was good value. The piece is on the site if folk want to go and read it. But you know, like, what a story, named after William Wallace because his dad liked the Braveheart film, and
I'm glad he's not called Mel.
Well, yeah, but apparently he was saying this morning that the story is William was too common a first name, so they plumped with Wallace, and as Gregor said, there will only be one Wallace Satiti. So yeah, look, it's a pretty cool story. And
it's well, look at Fabian Holland. I mean, he's another one with an incredible story. I don't know if you've seen the post that's going around on social media where he's the supporter.
Yeah.
And then he's the player, and he is actually Dutch. He got on a flight and went to Holland because he wanted to be a rugby player and didn't think it would happen in Holland. And sure enough, Fabian Holland from Holland is now a rugby player for the All Blacks. And it's
in a game against Ireland. Like, I mean,
it's an incredible game when you can still have those stories. They're professional athletes. They've been in an academy since they were about 12 months old, and they eat kale and broccoli, and they
all the stuff that you and I don't eat.
Machines. Yeah, unless it's battered. But I love that those stories are there. And my buddy was telling me about on Tuesday night how they have club night and they all put on their club jerseys. And when I was coaching Boroughmuir and we got to the cup final, Dougie Roberts had gone about getting boys who'd played for Boroughmuir in cup finals before to do videos and send them to the squad, and we shared them, and it was quite a nice thing. But you know, the thing that really grabbed me, and I said this to the boys in the changing room before the game, there was guys in New Zealand and Canada and America, and there was folk in Europe. Prop McNulty who'd gone doing, and there was folk all over the world, and they were doing these videos, but they were wearing their Boroughmuir shirt that they'd worn in the cup final. And the point I made to the boys was, at some point, these folk have been going somewhere and they've packed that shirt and taken it with them. And it's not the shirt that's important; it's the memory that it gets. And I love those things, that the All Blacks, when they leave and they spend a lot of time away from home, but they pack their club jersey in their bag to fly across the world, and on a Tuesday night they put on their club jersey again. I just think it's class, and I'm no on my soapbox. Professional rugby doesn't need club rugby. I still believe that. But club rugby needs club rugby. People need club rugby. And I just think it's brilliant that the All Blacks, who could quite easily go, I don't need that anymore, they still pack their club shirt on a Tuesday night. And no doubt they'll chuck mud at each other because the Oriental Rongotai boys for Wellington will get a hard time for the Johnsonville boys or the Petone boys or the, I love it. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, and why not? Like, it's so good to see, and maybe we've lost a bit of that connection between our grassroots game. Well, like, there's no denying we've lost the connection between our grassroots game and where these players came from and what makes them international rugby players. But and we've talked about this before, how often do you see, an Ardy Savea back playing for his club, or and that happens in New Zealand, and it's a great thing.
He played it at 15 in one of the games.
That's right. But maybe just as well for the back row boys. But
imagine kicking the ball in his throat, kick chase. I'll sit in the backfield.
A lot of backfield defence and a lot of your man. But it's a great thing, that, and I know we've got this draft and stuff, but it's just it's not the same. There's not that, you're fabricating players playing for clubs and stuff. So look, I think it is a big thing. Just with another comment here, when Gregor was reappointed, this pair said it'd be great because it was continuity. I didn't say that. Said that Scotland would most likely beat New Zealand. It would be just like Gregor. I said it would be very Gregor and very Gregor Scotland to beat New Zealand and then lose to Argentina, because this team have proven themselves to be capable of huge one-off results, and then failed to back it up, which is massively one of the massive frustrations of Gregor Townsend Scotland. I don't think I ever said it was great for continuity. I have written pieces saying I think, time is maybe for change. We've got loads of pieces on the site with varying opinions. I think it would be very sort of typical of this team to go and beat New Zealand and then fall down somewhere else. But let's wait and see.
I don't know how to take that Power Bite 92, but I appreciate your comment. Go for it. I don't know if I said it was great for continuity, but it is, because that's what continuity is. Gregor is still there. Whenever people ask me my opinion on Gregor, the thing I tend to reply is, what's your alternative? What? Now, that can't be how you live your life, but there's Steve Tandy as the first Welsh coach for 20 years of Wales, and rightly he is proud of that, and I think that's a good thing. Again, probably for another day, my feelings on coaches from overseas coaching a country, because I feel sometimes we end up being coached the way they wanted it from their country rather than identity yourself. But I don't think we can deny Gregor Townsend is a fantastic head coach and has done a fantastic job. That's not to say that someone else couldn't, but we're not party to what's going on. Gregor's been given it. This group of players, who's to say anybody else can get any more out of it? Back to that local bias that I bring up a lot. All the other countries are getting better too. France are getting better. Ireland are getting better. New Zealand have had this, they've not got their aura anymore. They're potentially going to hit a Grand Slam Northern Hemisphere tour. So South Africa are just relentless. Italy are getting better. England can't, England are, next Six Nations could be tough. So I don't think Gregor Townsend is not going to be the reason that we win against New Zealand or the reason that we lose against New Zealand, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, I totally agree. Just this one, is there some way of sending players to New Zealand for a couple of seasons?
Yes, there is, because there's the scholarship. But what there isn't is the ability to send professional players over, because then what you're doing is you're saying to somebody else to develop your players. Why would New Zealand Rugby do that? But as club players, by all means, go across, and lots of players have done that, and it's been good for them. As an experience, I can say I've done it, and I'm no professional rugby player and I've no Scotland caps, but it was a hell of a time in New Zealand. What a place to go. And these are the kind of things, Umsy, that Old Glory in America was designed for, Stade Nicosia in France was designed for, and we've not really, I don't know if we've seen them through, or we've given them long enough, or they didn't work. London Scottish. There was a time where players were sent to South Africa. I think, Umsy, what we would all prefer is really competitive structure within our own borders, where the competitions below Edinburgh, Glasgow are meaningful and representative of the best players. I would love to see an A structure. I would love to see a Scotland A team that plays in a shadow six. There's a whole load of things. It all comes down to money and resource, and I'm not sure there's a lot of either of those things.
I'm going to flash up two comments very quickly. We don't have to discuss them in any great length. A link with the Hurricanes, how good would that be? And it helps get Laidlaw, Clark, presumably, a step in the Scottish door. By the way,
the lap man, do you know, I was having a conversation with a few people recently about Clark Laidlaw, because my sort of niggle was, could he be the first Scotsman to coach the All Blacks? Now, I don't think that will happen. I do wonder. Clark's now a leader in that he's head coach, and I'm not sure if Clark Laidlaw is his next step to become an assistant coach in a national program. And I'm not sure where that would be. But with Gregor's contract, Clark's still got some work to do at the Hurricanes, and he needs to get them winning before it becomes massively attractive, certainly within New Zealand. But what's to stop the Wallabies coming and knocking on Clark's door and saying, come and be our head coach? And the number of international jobs now, Italy could be an attractive proposition. America, Canada could become. So who knows? And back to a point I was making before, and Lapman, by all means, comment, who would be your next Scottish Scotland coach? Head coach?
It's a totally fair point. And when you look, and we've discussed this loads of times, if that was and in your world, that is a non-negotiable. So if that was a non-negotiable, you rule out the two guys who are in the most obvious positions in Franco and Sean Everett. And then you're looking, okay, are there Scottish coaches in the Premiership? There's not as far as I'm aware, not a Scottish head coach.
No, Stevie Scott's at Bath. There's a lot of Scots involved at Red Bulls.
But you're all of a sudden not that far. You and I have had a quick scan there, metaphorical scan, and I'm already drawn to Clark's name. So if that was the barometer, you had to be Scottish. I think Clark's not far away from the discussion. Busy weekend for you?
I think what Lapman, sorry, just last point on that. I think what I would like to do, rather than look at who's the head coach, it's who's the coaching team. Because I think there's a lot of Scottish coaches out there with unreal experience, but not necessarily with head coach experience.
Yeah, and I think to that point, you've got to think that Pete Horn is in that role and was sort of fast tracked through his coaching career to where he is now because people see high potential in him being a Glasgow Warriors coach or a Scotland coach, looking.
Hey, John Dale's a British Lion.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, 100%. Look, if Gregor was to move on, I would be surprised if somebody like John Dale didn't think, hang on a minute, I'm the most senior of the assistants. I quite fancy it,
John Dale will be attractive to a lot of people. Yeah, busy weekend. It's going to be incredible. I'm really excited. I'm in Clubland tomorrow night in Aberfeldy. It's their 10th anniversary dinner tomorrow night, so I'm looking forward to that. And then Saturday I get to go to the All Blacks game with Little Miss Egg Shaped and some friends of mine, so I'm looking forward to that. And then on Saturday night, get in the car, start driving south because I'm going to be in Gloucester on Sunday, live on TNT Sport for anybody that's got money that can subscribe to TNT Sport for the 745 game to raise awareness of motor neuron disease and some much needed funds for in the name of Rob Burrow, Ed Slater and Doddy Weir. So I'm very excited because I get to have a microphone. I'm the stadium announcer. I'm getting to do a wee bit on the pitch. I think Andy Good is my throw to Andy Good for him. I just got sent through my script today.
So there is a script. You're not just allowed to.
No, would you let me freestyle? Well, you do every week.
But, every week.
Yeah, it's gonna. They're tracking for a sellout of Kingsholm. So it's going to be busy. There's a lot of good people going to be there. The MND community is going to be there. The team sheets have been sent, but I'm not allowed to say. But and we're an hour away from finding out, or an hour and a half away from finding out who the winner of the Traitors is going to be. Joe Marler's playing on Sunday. Big Jim Hamilton's playing. Rugby League royalty going to be there. Obviously, Sir Kev's going to be there. Johnny Wilkinson's going to be there, not playing, but there. Lewis Moody will be there. So while I wish it wasn't a thing, and there's going to be emotion all over the place, to have an event, and Doddy very much as part of the foundation was you had to have fun while you were doing it.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be an incredible day, and I feel very, very privileged to be part of it. So tune in to TNT Sport on Sunday. You might recognise a voice.
Sunday afternoon sorted. Hopefully, you're slightly. The one benefit of you being on TNT Sports was that I'll be able to control the volume a bit better than I do when you stand right behind me at the Hive.
Yeah, TNT. We'll just watch it the subtitles. It's amazing though for TNT Sport to back it, and the kickoff time had to be moved so that everything was clear. So the kickoff time's later on Sunday, which I hope is a nice way for folk that have been at games across the weekend, and then right, let's support this. Scan the QR code, donate a $5. Rob Burrows, the hospital wing's been opened this week, so his wife and kids will be there on Sunday. The Slater family will be there. It's I'm getting a bit emotional talking about it. It's going to be really special.
Do you know what else is amazing about these games? And and whether they're like classic Lions or whatever it is, I was going to start by saying the cast list is brilliant, but actually the rugby doesn't matter. But try telling Jim Hamilton and some of his pals when they pull their boots on, these boys all think they're 25 a game.
Well, the rugby league boys, like they do not miss. They are serious. Like they're there to win.
100%. And like you can't take that away from guys who've been pro athletes and who are totally built to win.
Well,
which actually
some of the league boys' names: the Youngs brothers, Joe Marler, Billy 12 Trees, Mike Tyndall, Al Lewington, Charlie Sharple, Scott Baldwin, Matt Banahan, Tom Cruise, Lee Dixon, Richard Hibbard, who I'm buzzing to see. I can't wait to see Hibbs. Paddy McAllister, Guy Thompson, Kyle Trainer that I coached at Watsonians. I'm looking forward to seeing him. And Ben Weird, all these boys going to be playing, which is just mental. But then you look at the league team and oh, wow, Keith Senior, Danny Brough, Chris Hill, Danny Houghton, Kyle Lulali, Adrian Morley.
By the way, Kyle Lulali and Adrian Morley, like,
heroes.
Talk about Arnie Savea, but there's a bit of that. Your man,
yeah.
Like there have to be a few warm shoulders or a wee port in the water bottle to get some of the rugby union. But Billy 12 Trees must be thinking, like, why have I signed up for this? You know?
Cipriani played last year and was unreal. League looked like his game. He was able to sit in the pocket and just conducted things and a little inside ball, and then he would say, Danny Cipriani had a lot of fun last year.
Yeah, but he's, he'd be the type of person that you could say, look, here's a set of golf clubs, going away and play around the golf, and he would be pretty useful. Last one, then we'll finally wrap up. Is there a link? How can people donate to the 745 or the My Name's Dory Foundation? Is there a way of doing it that's specific to the game, or is it just through...
There is, Umsy. There's ways to donate. There's going to be loads going on. I don't know if you've got TNT, Umsy, but if you go on to social media and type in the 745 game, it'll come up on Facebook. The Instagram's where a lot of stuff's been pumped out, but the website, the 745 game's got all the details on it. So if you can donate, it's hugely appreciated. So thanks, Umsy. It's been great to get your engagement tonight, and if you're able to make a donation, it's hugely appreciated. So thank you.
And we'll share, if hopefully you can find us some sort of graphic or a link or something, and we'll share that on the Scotland Rugby News Facebook pages over the weekend, and we'll hopefully get...
Hey, I'll maybe be able to report live for you.
What a prospect.
Here's we excited Bruce with Joe Marler and Mike Tyndall, my new best pals, who are like, who are you? Sling your hook.
Television royalty and real royalty. Yeah, listen, look, I hope it goes well. I'm delighted that you're involved. So, fingers crossed you're driving down the road celebrating a Scotland win. Although, does that mean you missed the open top bus?
I'm driving the open top bus. They're waiting for me to come back on Monday afternoon, and I'm driving it.
I tell you what a prospect that would be, up the Royal Mile past that Piper.
Giving it that one to the Whistle Binkies locals. Well played, lads. Well done. Right, pal. Great to see you. Thanks very much. Great to chat. It's I said we didn't have much to go, and we're over an hour again. But and thank you to everybody who contributed. It's good to have that. Click a like, subscribe on YouTube, because there's lots more to come. I promise. Final word from our sponsor, Scotland Rugby News.
Just before you wrap up, just to say for folk watching, we'll be doing a live video not straight after the game, but after the game on Saturday night. So if folk want to get comments, suggestions, thoughts in, we'll be live at some point on Saturday evening, so they can drop them in there. We'll have a post out on our Facebook page, so folk keep an eye out for that. Drop their comments in there, then we can kind of address some of the points, questions, discussion points, topics after the game.
See, folk would think we'd rehearsed this. It's so smooth. Yeah. Looking forward to it. Cheers, my man. Last word from our sponsor, Scotland Rugby News Podcast, was brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV right now. There's thousands of jobs across Scotland, and you can find the one for you at S1 Jobs. Start your search today. I'm off to watch Celebrity Race Across the World and then The Traitors, and then it'll be time for bed.